The night my husband asked for a divorce, he didn't even look nervous. He walked into our house at almost 4 in the morning, loosened his tie, and tossed his car keys onto the kitchen counter like it was any normal night. Meanwhile, I had been sitting on the couch for hours with cold tea in my hands, waiting for him to answer my calls. When he finally looked at me, his face was empty. "We need to end this, Lena." Just like that, 10 years of marriage reduced to one sentence. I remember staring at him, waiting for him to smile and say he was joking, but he didn't. Instead, he walked past me calmly and opened the refrigerator. "I already spoke to a lawyer," he continued. "It'll be easier if you don't make this difficult." That sentence shattered something inside me. Not because he wanted a divorce, but because he sounded prepared, rehearsed, as if he had been planning this for a long time. I stood there frozen while he poured himself water, like he hadn't just destroyed my entire world. "What happened?" I whispered. He sighed dramatically, almost annoyed. "I'm tired. Lena, I can't keep pretending anymore." Pretending. That word burned inside my chest. For years I had supported him through everything. I stayed beside him when his business failed. I sold my mother's jewelry so we could pay bills. I worked double shifts while he rebuilt his future, and now he was calling our marriage pretend. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw every memory back in his face. But instead, I asked the question I was terrified to ask. Is there someone else? For the first time that night, he hesitated, only for a second. Then, he looked away, and that silence told me everything. I felt my stomach twist painfully. There, it was. The truth women always sense before they can prove it. Another woman. He finally rubbed his forehead and muttered, "It just happened." Those 4 words nearly destroyed me. It just happened. As if betrayal was some accident. As if loyalty simply slipped and disappeared. I looked around the kitchen we built together. The family photos, the anniversary flowers still sitting on the table from 2 weeks earlier. Had all of it been fake? But what hurt even more was how confident he looked. He expected tears. He expected me to collapse. Maybe even beg him to stay. Because for years, I had been the forgiving wife, the patient wife, the woman who fixed every broken thing in silence. What he didn't know was that 2 weeks earlier, I had already discovered his secret, and I had done something he never imagined. I quietly stood up from the couch, walked past him, and grabbed the small folder hidden inside my purse. Then I looked him directly in the eyes and smiled for the first time that night. "You should sit down, Daniel," I said softly, "because this divorce is about to become your worst mistake." And suddenly, for the first time in years, he looked afraid. 2 weeks before that night, I wasn't searching for proof. I was searching for a charger. Daniel had left his laptop open in our bedroom while he showered. I never touched his things before. I trusted him completely. But then a message appeared on the screen. "I missed last night already." My hands froze. At first, I convinced myself there had to be some explanation. Maybe it was a coworker joke. Maybe I misunderstood. But deep down, I already knew. I clicked the message, and my entire world collapsed. There were hundreds of conversations, hotel bookings, pictures, voice messages, promises about their future together. The woman's name was Vanessa, 27 years old, one of the new employees at his company. I sat on the floor unable to breathe while tears rolled silently down my face. 10 years together, and suddenly I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. But then I found something even worse. The messages weren't just romantic, they were strategic. Daniel had been hiding money from me for almost a year. Secret accounts, fake business, expenses, transfers. I knew nothing about, and then came the message that changed everything. Once the divorce is done, The house will already be protected. She won't get anything. I remember reading that sentence over and over again. Not only was he betraying me emotionally, he was planning to destroy me financially too. That was the exact moment something inside me changed. The crying stopped, the begging stopped, and for the first time in my life, I became calm, very calm. I took photos of everything, every message, every transfer, every hidden account. Then I contacted the one person Daniel feared most, my cousin Rachel, a divorce attorney. For 2 weeks, I stayed silent while Daniel continued pretending to be a loving husband. He kissed my forehead every morning. He asked me what I wanted for dinner. Meanwhile, he was secretly preparing to leave me with nothing. What he didn't realize was that I was preparing too. Rachel uncovered everything. Daniel had used company funds for expensive trips with Vanessa. Some transactions were illegal. Worse, several accounts were opened under false reporting names to avoid taxes. The deeper we looked, the uglier the truth became. And suddenly, my heartbreak turned into clarity. This man never planned to simply leave me. He planned to erase me. So I stopped mourning the marriage, because there was no marriage left to save. The night he came home demanding a divorce, he believed he controlled the story. He thought he held the power, until I opened the folder sitting on the kitchen table. "What's this?" he asked carefully. "Your truth," I replied. I watched the color slowly disappear from his face as he flipped through page after page. Bank statements, photos, copies of messages, legal documents. His hands literally started shaking. "Where did you get this?" I looked at him coldly. "You underestimated me." Suddenly, the confident man standing in my kitchen disappeared. Now he looked desperate. "Lena, listen. We can explain this." "No," I interrupted quietly. "You can explain it to the court." The silence between us felt heavy. Then came the sentence he never expected me to say. "I already filed first." Daniel stared at me in complete shock, because men like him always believe women will stay broken long enough to be controlled. But pain has a strange way of creating strength, and mine was finally waking up. The divorce became public 3 months later, and so did Daniel's secrets. His company launched an internal investigation after Rachel submitted evidence connected to financial misuse. Several executives discovered he had been manipulating expense accounts for personal trips and hidden purchases. The man who once walked through life overflowing with confidence suddenly became the center of whispers, meetings, and legal warnings. Vanessa disappeared almost immediately. Apparently, relationships built on lies don't survive truth very well. But the real moment of justice came in court. Daniel walked in, expecting me to negotiate quietly. Instead, every document he tried to hide was already sitting in front of the judge. I'll never forget the look on his face when the judge asked about the hidden accounts. For the first time since I met him, he had no answers. His voice shook, his hands trembled, and suddenly the powerful man who thought I would beg for love was begging for mercy instead. The court ruled heavily against him because of the financial deception. I received far more than he ever intended to give me. The house, compensation, protection of shared assets. But strangely, none of that mattered as much as I thought it would, because the greatest thing I gained wasn't money, it was myself. For years, I had made my entire world around keeping someone else happy. I ignored my own pain just to maintain peace. And somewhere during that marriage, I disappeared. After the divorce, I started rebuilding slowly. I traveled alone for the first time in my life. I reopened the small art studio I once abandoned to support Daniel's career. I learned how peaceful life becomes when you stop begging people to value you. Then one afternoon, year later, Daniel called me unexpectedly, almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. His voice sounded smaller, somehow. I made a mistake, he said quietly. Funny how those words always come too late. I looked around my bright apartment filled with paintings, sunlight, and peace I hadn't felt in years. Then I smiled softly. No, Daniel, I replied. You made a choice. And before he could speak again, I ended the call. That night, I sat by my window, thinking about everything that happened. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the humiliation, but also the strength I found afterward. Sometimes people destroy your heart because they believe you'll never survive without them. What they fail to understand is this. Woman who finally sees the truth becomes impossible to control, and losing someone who betrays you is never the tragedy. Losing yourself for them is, but thankfully, I found myself again.